Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Morgannin, here on behalf of World of Piranha Bytes with my good friend. You want to introduce yourself?
Hello, I am Melodic, and I am a moderator on World of Elex forums, and also an admin of the YouTube page and Facebook page.
And today we are just doing a sort of impromptu discussion of the recent gameplay footage and screenshots that have popped up recently. And this is actually our second attempt to record this. We had technical difficulties last time, so this will not be quite as live and off the cuff as it was last time. But let's give it a go. You want to check out the first video then?
The first video, the one from Instagram. What do you say?
Yeah, let's give it a go. So this one is only just under a minute long, but it's the first one that came up, and this is from Nordic Games' official Instagram page, and we will have links to the original sources to these two videos in the description below. So let's get rolling.
3, 2, 1, and play.
Okay, so we see at the beginning here, this guy is using a ranged weapon, but he never actually fires it. He just goes straight into melee combat on what seem to be a few unsuspecting NPCs. So this was the first glimpse at combat that anyone received for this game, and so far there's been a lot of controversy over the quality and speed of the combat animations here.
Yes, they seem a little unpolished. And I see just a little bit of the Risen 3 combat system.
Yeah, I think, it's pretty typical combat system for games these days, in my opinion, but hopefully they can add a more Risen 1 dynamic to it, so it's not quite as frustrating.
Still, that jetpack looks amazing. You can explore and use it to get out of sticky situations all the time. And it might be the greatest bonus this game brings.
Yeah, it's gonna add a quite curious dimension to it, I think. It does seem pretty short-lived. There's a short frame there. You can actually see the fuel meter on the character's back when it fires off, but it's definitely gonna add some new elements to exploration and probably even combat tactics once they sort it out. But from what Jenny said on the forums, it sounds like a lot of other NPCs are gonna have access to the jetpack as well, so it's possible we might have some jetpack chase scenes going on in this game, which could be pretty interesting.
Also, jetpack melee. Imagine fighting with swords mid-fight. That would be an amazing development.
We didn't get to see any of that in this video, but hopefully that's something that we can take part in once the game is released. It sounds like that's the plan, so we'll see what kind of aerial maneuvers we can pull off in combat.
Still, from this short video, what do you think about the level design?
Hard to tell here. This just looks like a sort of an entryway to one of the faction's settlements. So it's pretty straightforward here. It looks a lot like, actually, I'd say the Keela natives in Risen 3. The way they kind of just have scaffolding and bridges going across a bunch of different landmarks, as it were.
What I always liked about Piranha Bytes is that they have an amazing sense of level design. You never actually feel like you leave the real world. It's a profound sense of immersion, and this game seems to fit the formula. The only exception was Risen 3, of course, with all those islands. But except that, I loved it.
That's true of Risen 2 as well. It was just a bit of a design flaw, I think, going on, but it seems like they've gotten that worked out. We can discuss that a bit more when we're looking at the screenshots, which actually show a lot more of the terrain. But overall, the impression I get of player versus player combat seems like there's going to be a few familiar techniques and a few new ones to experiment with here. We'll just have to see how the AI really works out in the end.
Of course.
Alright, we done with this one? You want to move on to the next one?
Sure.
Okay.
Feel free to count down.
Alright, so this one comes from... What's the website called? Jeux Video?
Jeux Vidéo.
Okay, yeah, I'm terrible at speaking French. So yeah, this was from a French website, and it's a bit of a report on the Elex presentation at PAX East this weekend, and it shows a lot more gameplay video than the last one. And let's get it rolling, shall we? On 3, 2, 1. So don't worry, this fellow here doesn't stay on the screen for very long.
But look at him, how happy he is.
Yeah, he seems quite excited to be there. But
I wonder if
he'd be a bad reporter if he showed no enthusiasm.
Yeah. I wonder if it's about Elex or the other games.
Yeah. Here we get a glimpse at somewhat of a snapper-like creature. But,
it looks like a snapper mated with a xenomorph.
Yeah, something like that. So, the AI does not seem too on point with that creature there, but what we did see, I think, is how the stamina bar plays into the combat here, because we saw at some points the player ran out of stamina pretty quickly, and it seemed like he had no choice but to eat a couple hits because he couldn't roll out of the way. He didn't have the stamina for it.
How did you feel about the first Risen combat system?
It was probably the best they've come up with so far. It was simple, it was straightforward, you were very involved in it though. The only flaw it really had, I'd say, is the automatic lock-on. So if they had done away with that while adding a few of the new tricks that they've come up with in the meantime.
Dirty tricks.
Yeah, the dirty tricks, but also casting spells from the quick bar, for example. That could all work out to probably one of the more dynamic and controlled combat systems that we've seen in the game so far. So here is a bit of dialogue for some reason, and I just realized that guy's name is Jorah. That was a merchant from Gothic 2.
And also a character from Game of Thrones.
Is that right? I don't remember him.
Yeah, Jorah Mormont.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he has an H at
by Danny.
Yeah, he has an H at the end of his name. That's why I forgot. Now this begs a couple questions. He's talking about this. This is clearly a berserker, one of the faction who have renounced technology entirely, and he made a comment on the what I'm assuming is some kind of like Pip-Boy device on the player's wrist, and you know, it seems that their laws against technology are not as rigid as has been implied so far. So I'm wondering how that's going to play in, especially since no matter which faction you join, you're supposed to have access to the Jetpack.
Yeah, look at that shiny, shiny, shiny asphalt in the road. Still, it's a pre-alpha build, and I'm willing to skip all these details.
Yeah,
I'm gonna give them a pass, especially at that horrible, horrible looking hair. That's a mesh, that's not an alpha texture or a shade or anything. That's just a freaking mesh.
I'm not even sure that's a mesh. I think he just spilled some rubber on his head. Yeah, I think what happened here is just, since it's been so long since the announcement, they knew they had to show us something to keep us interested. So as long as all the mechanics were working properly, you know, they were going to just say, this is all pre-alpha footage, all the assets in the game, you know, at some point may be replaced with higher quality ones. It just seems like, you know, they had to, maybe under pressure from the publisher, they had to display what the work they've done so far. It sounds to me at the RPC, the roleplay convention, next month, as well as Gamescom, we'll probably see a lot of improvements to...
Yeah, can't wait that. One big concern I have about this game, the last time in a Piranha Bytes game when I saw a really, really good, well-designed forest was, I think, Gothic 2. Then they just lost something. They weren't as scary, as menacing as they were before. And I really hope they can correct this in this game.
I do too. It's just, in general, I think moving to the larger open maps in the later games, it was just hard to pull off such a dense and intimidating forest. I do think they did a very good job in the first Risen. It's just that most of the forests you encountered were not very big.
Yeah, the swamp camp was really, really well made.
Yeah, swamp camp and the forests on the cliffs above it was actually pretty intimidating, but once you kind of, you know, got a feel for it, you realize how small in general they were.
What I noticed is that they used gimmicks in order to give forth some, I don't know how to say this, depth. In Gothic 1 and Gothic 2, they just had that feeling. In Gothic 2, they even had some tint, some green tint when on the screen when you enter the forest.
Yeah, there's some kind of filter going on when you got in there.
But when they made the transition to the Risen series and to Gothic 3 and so on, if you disabled all the vegetation details, they just felt empty.
That's probably a consequence of using the speed tree engine. That's what a lot of games use to build up forests really quickly. It just basically copies.
As far as I remember, Gothic 1 had speed tree.
Did it?
Yeah.
I did not know that software was around that long. But what else Gothic 1 did was if you were far away from the forest, it had kind of like a, I'm not sure what the technical term is. It was like some kind of, it looked like a screen over all the trees, so it made it look like the trees more densely packed.
Yeah,
it
generated a mesh which replaced the level of details at a large distance.
I mean, it basically looked like wallpaper over all the trees, and but once you got closer, it dissipated, so you actually saw individual trees instead of just like a wall of them.
And man, when you were in that forest, you had to run for your life once you met a wolf.
or a shadow beast even later. Anyway.
So what do you think? Is this going to be a game which is as easy as most games in today's generation, or is this going to be a game which reaches that level of difficulty which Gothic 1 and Gothic 2 had?
I don't know if it'll reach Gothic 1 or Gothic 2 levels. A lot of that difficulty was in some way kind of inherent to the somewhat clumsiness of the controls, but also enemies were a lot more aggressive in those games, and we just haven't seen that from them lately. Especially you think of the enemies in Risen 3 who just had a tendency to stand there and take the hits, and it seems like that's what we're seeing here as well. But of course, this is all pre-alpha. I don't think the AI is really finalized yet, so hopefully that's something they work on. And I think a lot of games lately, the biggest problem they've had is that they give you a lot of tricks to, they have a lot of maneuvers available in combat, a lot of different attacks you can do. But the thing is, the AI is so passive that it really doesn't matter what you do. You're gonna win every time. We've seen that kind of in The Witcher 3, in any of the Assassin's Creed games.
Well, fun fact. The Witcher 3 guys said that they took Gothic 1 and Gothic 2 as a source of inspiration for the game. They didn't have any level scaling for the enemies or anything like that. They just used more powerful enemies to lock out certain areas from the gamer.
Which has always been a really good design philosophy from Piranha Bytes, I think. Just a good way to, instead of having artificial barriers like invisible walls or construction, even just regular walls, or just NPCs who say no, you can't go there yet.
I remember from Gothic 1, one of my first memories was encountering a scavenger, and somehow I managed to beat it. And I felt so powerful and so strong, and I decided to explore the woods a little bit. Big mistake.
Oh yeah, then you run into snappers, you run into orcs here and there.
Those snappers looked like scavengers from a distance. You can show the audience some pictures around here.
Right.
And I remember getting my ass handed to me from the first encounter. One bite and I was dead. I had PTSD for a long time. I didn't dare go near the forest.
Yeah, so that's just something they've always had. You could tell when an area was, out of your league, and that's just not something a lot of games do. Usually they just copy and paste the same enemies, and they just scale up with your level, a lot like the Elder Scrolls does. And that's just, to me, that kind of kills the sense of progression in the game. If you can go anywhere from the start and do anything you want, it doesn't feel like you're actually getting anywhere in the game when you level up.
Yeah, you really felt the difference when you got a new armor, a new a sword. When you added even 5 learning points to your strength, you felt that difference, and I'm pining to feel that again. So, shall we go to the screenshots and comment on them a little bit?
Yep, I think that's a fantastic idea. Okay, so taking a look at this first screenshot here, well, we see confirmation that two-handed weapons are going to be back. It's got the longsword going on there.
I don't know if that's a two-handed weapon. I remember in Gothic 1, when you used to hold the one-handed weapon like that before hitting with it, or even before taking the first classes, and learning that a one-handed weapon should be used with only one hand.
Yeah,
but it could be an indicator that you must learn how to use a one-handed weapon properly before transitioning to a two-handed weapon.
Yeah, so I always loved that about the early games, is they made it clear that your character was not a warrior, and you actually had to get somewhere to be the hero that you were trying to be.
Yeah, but an interesting fact I just now realize, that guy is holding the sword with his left hand. Do you have lefties?
I don't think so. I think since he's got the pommel in his left hand and the blade in his right hand, that's how you always held two-handed weapons in pretty much all the Gothic games, so that gives me the impression that that's a two-handed sword, and that's going to function that way in the game. That
makes sense. Yeah.
Anyway, this guy's whole getup looks very Mad Max to me, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's some rust punk. I think that's the term.
Yeah.
And it looks amazing. Yeah, especially combined with that bridge, which reminds me of the bridges in Gothic 2, with their guards who asked you for money to cross them.
Oh yeah, the highwaymen,
or kick the shit out of them. Yeah.
Or the guard at the top of Dexter's tower.
I wonder if the bridges will again have invisible walls on the sides of them, like they did in Risen 3, which was so annoying. I hated that. I just want to jump and die. If I want to jump and die, let me jump and die. Or let me fall in the water below and swim. But don't put invisible walls in the game.
Oh yeah, I think that's just like a problem with a collision. They probably just, for some reason, assumed that nobody would ever try to jump off the bridge.
They don't know their fan base.
Altogether, I'm trying to figure out which faction this guy would probably be a part of. It could be either the Berserkers or the Bandits. I'm not really sure, but it looks like that's a Berserker village ahead of him that he's going towards right now. It's based on the very medieval appeal to it all.
Yeah, it's very reminiscent of the farms in Gothic 2. I love that design.
Oh yeah, that was probably my favorite location, just aesthetically, in Gothic 2.
So which are the factions, the different factions that we know of?
We know of the Berserkers, who are supposed to be the faction that has renounced technology completely, and especially any technology produced by Elex. However, they do choose to use it, to refine it and use it as a sort of, I guess, a spell-casting medium. They use it as mana, basically. Then there's the clerics, who renounce the consumption of Elex in any way. They consider it like a drug that's, corrupting humanity, as it were. And instead, they choose to refine it and use it in technology in part of their fanatical crusade to dominate the world, basically. And then there's the bandits, who don't really give a shit about any of that. They're just, a bunch of scavengers and outlaws who...
They're basically frat boys, YOLO.
Yeah. They don't give a shit. They just want to get paid. And then, of course, there's the Albs, who are, I guess that's short for albino. They're sort of the combine, as it were. They have the largest amount of influence in the world, and they have the most advanced technology, and that's who your player character was originally a part of them, until he failed his mission and is now basically gone rogue. So they are not a faction you can actually join in the game. They're just a central antagonist, I guess.
Yeah, what the Piranha Bytes games lacked for some titles now was deep and comprehensive lore. about everything which happened in the world and so on. It doesn't need to be a part of the gameplay, but it's nice not to have to imagine things, or at least not to have to imagine them more than you have to. And that is why Reason 2 and Reason 3 felt so artificial. We waited for explanations for things which were in Reason 1, but we never got them. And I really hope they can correct this time.
There was very little backstory that ended up making it into the second and third Risen games, but given that this is a clean slate and Piranha Bytes has insisted this is a game that they wanted to make for years now, I think they've had a lot of time to come up with a history for it, so I think we're going to see whether or not you really, can suspend your disbelief for the fact that, medieval factions and futuristic technology can, coexist in the same world. At least they have an idea of what they're doing now.
Exactly, I want an explanation. How can you have such powerful technology as jetpacks and as laser guns and so on and so forth and still use weapons? I want that explanation.
And I think we'll get it.
Yeah, I hope
get
so.
An explanation. It's just
I think Bjorn said that he had this project pinned down for years and years and years. And
I believe they said this is basically the game they wanted to make since they made the first Risen. It seems they made Risen to kind of get back on their feet after the debacle of Gothic 3, and it just ended up turning into a franchise after that. So they never had the chance to make Elex, the game that they've always wanted to make.
I really hope for some nice Easter eggs though, like focus stones or something like that.
Yeah, or they did good with the references in the Risen games. It's just references are not a substitute for that classic Piranha Bytes design philosophy. So
exactly.
Anyway, we seem to be rambling here. Shall we proceed and analyze more screenshots?
The second screenshot.
This one just screams Mass Effect to me, basically. This structure here seems so, such a intense contrast to, the overgrown, ruined world, and yet there's this, almost pristine, futuristic structure here that I can't even fathom what it might be used for.
Exactly, it's classical sci-fi design. Reminds me of Oblivion with Tom Cruise, the movie. And it used this kind of design a lot, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it kind of put some pressure on them in the story department.
Yeah, well, this is just, honestly, it's a very typical sci-fi sort of aesthetic here with like the rounded edges and a lot of bulk to it that it doesn't really need. You see this in Mass Effect, you see it in like XCOM, the recent games. It's made to look like a very alien technology. It just seems very extravagant to me, but it is what it is. It's just part of their motif, I guess.
Yeah. But still, those trees look amazing combined with the structure.
Yeah, I like how it just kind of stands out, and I think it's going to be pretty interesting. What I do like is that this screenshot here really seems to be emphasizing the vertical exploration offered by the Jetpack. So, whereas if this was any of their other games, you would look at this structure and think, okay, well, I can't really do much about that. Now, it's implying that if you use a jetpack properly, you can actually reach the top and probably find some good stuff up there, or even find a new way to get inside.
Yeah, I remember when in Gothic 1 you had those mountains and you just wanted to get on top of them, and you had to jump like crazy a few thousand times just from point to point until you reached the top.
And then you got to the top and realized that's the end of the world and you just fell over.
Yeah.
So, what I do like about the existence of the jetpack is it seems to suggest that they are not going to... they're going to put more thought into the
natural barriers.
Yeah, the natural barriers and where the world really ends. And, you're pretty much going to know where you can and cannot go.
Yeah, kudos to them for that.
Yeah. Alright, you want to move on to the next one?
Yeah, sure.
So, I'm not really sure what's going on with this guy's helmet. There's a lot of gadgets attached to it. I'm not sure how we can see through that visor, but this, I'm assuming. Well, my original assumption is that this was part of the bandits' settlement, since we know that they are prone to scavenging raw materials and hardware. But what we do know is that the bandits are localized in the desert map of the desert region of the game. So it's still possible, but it's not really clear here.
Yeah, first I thought that was a very meta joke about Oculus Rift, to be honest. Maybe. That difference between the two characters is just amazing, and I really want to know where will they go with this story-wise. Will they have a faction of slaves? Will they have a faction of merchants who trade the slaves and so on? But still, poverty versus technology, that has been a motif in creation for thousands of years, and I really want to see where they go with that.
It'll be interesting to see the disparity between the people who have the power and the people who are just trying to live their lives, I guess. I think Gothic 2 probably had the strongest, I guess, sense of that. You had the farmers who were struggling to survive, and you had all the fat merchants in the upper quarter just, waltzing about, going about their day like nothing's even happening. But this is going to be a totally different setting from that. But I think some of the same, kind of principles will probably still be here.
Yeah.
All right, well,
that's really great.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what else to say about this one. It just looks like a scrapyard of some kind, but it does beg the question. It seems like no, I lost my train of thought there, so I'm going to say something else. I saw in the question and answer thread, someone asked, Jenny straight up, like, how do you explain the fact that, like, there's all this new technology, but nobody seems to be using the cars and the roads that are still available? And her answer was basically, you see how ruined everything is. None of it's really usable, and yet you see how all this new technology is available to them. So basically, why would we fix the roads and why would we use the cars if we have jetpacks and teleporters available to us? It's just a waste of time. Yeah,
exactly. Plus a fact which is less known and yet ignored in all movies is the fact that gasoline spoils. After a few years of standing in a pit or in a car in the tank, it won't be usable anymore. So it makes sense that if they stopped digging for petrol and transforming it into gas, well then cars won't be usable anymore, even if you fix them.
And it's probably at this point, given that the Elex substance itself is universally used as probably a fuel source for all the new technology, it's easier to just create new modes of transport that rely on that rather than trying to retrofit old, like, junk vehicles to run on Elex instead of gasoline.
Exactly. Vertical exploration for the win, as they keep saying. They really like this phrasing, vertical exploration.
Well, it's going to be nice to take part in that. So this next screenshot doesn't show a whole lot. It's just a very, very friendly, adorable-looking lizard guy. Just kind of chilling in the center of the frame here.
It actually looks quite friendly and cute.
Oh yeah, I would put that on a leash and walk it around town.
Yeah, it would be a shame if you won't be able to friendly interact with these guys.
Yeah. Alright, we do see in the background, it looks like some kind of oil rigging or some kind of like some kind of like mining or drilling machinery in the background there. And
that's a classic oil rig.
Yeah, and all I can assume that's used for in this setting is probably to mine Elex from the ground. Since we do know it is, of course, a very sought-after resource, and ever since it came off the meteorite that destroyed the world, it's been, sort of ingrained in the terrain. So, probably a lot of the technology used in like fracking and oil industries probably just as applicable to mine this precious resource as well.
And also the piranhas have a lot of expertise with this kind of setting, since they are from the Ruhr area in Germany, which is an industrial area. And I think they might just get that feeling, right?
Yeah, they probably get a lot of influence just by looking out the window.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, this next screenshot here, I think, is one of the probably the ones that has had the most contention, because you get a really good look at the sword here, which you do see in other screenshots, and the biggest question people have is, how is that at all useful? Just look at the bulk of it, and it looks like it's just made out of plastic, but I guess
it's still pre-alpha. The shaders are not ready yet.
Yeah, they're obviously going to refine the appearance of it, and hey, don't forget, this is probably an Elex powered sword, so no matter what they make it out of, it's gonna be pretty powerful.
I just look at this guy and I really, really hope for his sake that the Elex substance can be used as sunscreen. Look at those pasty white hands.
Yeah. I think you know what? Don't forget, he was an albino.
Oh, yes.
There you go. What I find the most interesting is that it looks like he has a GoPro camera on his head.
Yeah, exactly.
So I wonder what that's used for. Actually, maybe that's like a flashlight or something. For nighttime exploration. And
if it's a GoPro, then I really hope it can take videos and upload them to YouTube automatically.
Alright, what else we got here? It looks like a walled-off compound with a gate in the middle. I thought that was a bridge before, but I realized that didn't really make sense. But another screenshot I think shows actually part of the interior of that. So you see a lot of trees back there, and I think there's a lake in there too. So I wonder what exactly that wall is defending.
Also, it looks very reminiscent of Jurassic Park. Remember the T-Rex enclosure with those cables? Maybe
it's to keep something in and not something out.
Yes, exactly. That would be awesome.
Alright, this next shot looks like something either out of The Witcher, out of Fallout, or out of Stalker. Very
and those guys
looking
don't care less about it.
Oh no, I see this every day. Big pulsating mounds of some kind of fungus, I imagine. No big deal. Although I would not suggest poking that with a very sharp stick.
Yeah, but I keep wondering if those tentacles we see can grab and eat you, like in Half-Life 1. There was a creature with tentacles which grabbed you and pulled you upwards and ate you.
That's right, the barnacles they were called.
Knuckles.
Those were the bane of my existence playing that game, especially with the when they tried to toss those in the platforming sections.
But what I really hope is that you can just get a grenade launcher and blow that in thousand little pieces.
Yeah, I would not walk anywhere near that without a flamethrower at the very least.
That would be a sight to remember.
Alright, and this last one is the classic, I guess, mech that we've been seeing in a lot of their artwork lately. And here we see it in its pre-alpha rendered glory. So it's got quite the arsenal going on there. It looks like a couple of heavy machine guns, miniguns on the sides, probably missile launchers on its back, who knows. This thing is definitely a force to be reckoned with. And if you're playing as Berserker, then wish you all the luck in the world trying to kill this thing with your sword.
Yeah, it really looks like something which is meant to keep you out of areas which you are not supposed to explore yet.
Which I do believe is exactly what they intended it for. In some of the early interviews and Q&A threads, Jenny has stated that these are pretty much going to be used to, in exactly what we said before, just keep low-level players out of high-level areas. But if you have your wits about you, I'm sure you can find a way to elude this terrible thing.
Yes, and I really hope you can control one. Use it as a suit.
Someone, I think, asked that in the forums, and Jenny did not really give a clear answer. But
Maybe they think about it. They think about using it as a drone, control it remotely.
That would be something else. All right. There are 2 more. I believe they're on the next page. Yep. So, let me know when you're ready.
I am ready.
Okay, so
start.
We got this first one here. Guy's in an interesting outfit. He looks like a migrant worker from the 40s or something. You know, he's got like the...
He's a communist, goddammit.
He's just...
Scourge of the earth.
Oh, yeah. Just a hard-working man of the world. But... Well, he's still got a jetpack, so...
This landscape is amazing.
Yeah, this is actually one of the... Probably the best landscape views I've seen so far. You can see... how low res some of the textures get in the distance, but overall just the draw distance and the level of detail that you can see from this far away is fairly impressive by Piranha Bytes standards.
Yeah, and in the distance you have snow-covered mountains. That's amazing.
Yep, and I believe that's where the Alps are supposed to be centralized, but time will tell if we get that far. You can see something like a radio tower just to the left of his head. So I'm wondering how
the forests look dense, very immersive.
Yep. I'm wondering how the global communications is really going to work in this game. But you can also see signs of other settlements, to the right and kind of in the middle there. So it seems like a lot of civilization is pretty spread out, but not that far from each other.
Yeah, what I really liked about the earlier games was that wherever you went, you were sure to find something interesting to do. It wasn't just landscape for the sake of landscape.
Right, which is what
it was all integrated in the story.
Which is what it has been one of the greatest weaknesses of a lot of open world games as of late. Even The Witcher 3 is guilty of it. Elder Scrolls and Fallout are notorious for it. Is just spreading out so much stuff across such a wide world that there's really no cohesiveness to it, and there's just not a whole lot to find in between. Not a lot of interesting or really significant things to do. This is a screenshot I mentioned earlier, though. We can actually see the wall with the gateway at the bottom there. So
yes, with the lake.
Yeah, so it's walling off something, trying to keep it in there, it seems, or keep people out. I'm just wondering what exactly is significant about that this particular lake, I guess, that makes it worth defending so heavily.
Maybe in this post-apocalyptic world, even clean water is a valuable resource.
Could be, actually. That's a very good thought.
Yeah.
Alright. Moving on to the next one. Now, I'm still finding new things about this. You can see that some of the foliage quality is not that good, but again, that's work in progress.
Exactly.
Here we see the foot of that same structure we saw in the Mass Effect looking screenshot earlier. We also see the massive towers with power lines going by. So what I just noticed is that there's actually a guy standing to the right of the player character's knee. I'm trying to get a good look at him. I can't really see what his deal is. You see him?
Not yet. Oh yes, that tiny little guy.
Yeah.
So that structure is huge.
Yeah, it is absolutely monstrous. I'm not sure the jetpack will even get you to the top of it, but perhaps
worth trying.
Yeah. No, trust me, I'm probably going to be trying for hours. Other than that, I guess there's not really much to see here. It seems that it is also in that walled-off compound with a lake, based on the wall going around there.
Yes, it really feels like a personal project. I always felt that Reason 2, when it came out, it was meant to cash in on the success of the Pirates of the Caribbean series. And this really feels like a personal project, and we can have the best expectations for it.
I do believe so. It might be a little exotic and almost silly in a lot of ways, just with the setting that they've come up with, but I think it's going to be... I think there's going to be a lot of passion behind it at the very least, and we will definitely be able to feel the difference in the design philosophy between this and the later Risen games, so I'm excited.
Yeah, Piranha Bytes created amazing games. Gothic 1, Gothic 2, Reason 1. And they also disappointed. Gothic 3, Reason 2, Reason 3. And yet, despite the anterior game being a success or a failure, I always got hyped up. And I always kept my fingers crossed for the success of the next game. I really am a fanboy, what can I say?
Well, I'm keeping an open mind at the very least, so I think we are going to see something fantastic out of this game. It might not be the game changer that they're looking for, but I think it will be something to remember nonetheless.
Yeah, Piranha Bytes have one of the most loyal fan communities in gaming history, and if it is at least a decent game, not necessarily an extraordinary one, the fans will be happy.
And given the radical change in setting, I don't think we're going to see any other game quite like this, so I think at the very least, the core fans will find a lot of replay value in this game.
Exactly. I still found after 5 years, 6 years of playing Gothic 1, Gothic 2, I still found secrets. It happened to a lesser degree with Reason 1. And that is what they are all about. Putting little details, finding secrets, and a lot of replay value. Keep your fingers crossed.
Oh yeah, I'm excited. And, well, we'll hope for the best. We will learn more in about a month when Piranha Bytes and Nordic Games make another demonstration at the Roleplay Convention. And we will, I suppose, be covering that as well, I think.
Exactly.
So,
thank you for joining us. What can I say?
Thank you all for joining us. And do stay tuned for more Piranha Bytes news as soon as it is available. We will cover everything as soon as it comes to our new studio, I guess.
Yes, come join us in the forums. We have a brand new forum just waiting for you. We have a German section, an English section, and a Russian section. And also subscribe here on YouTube. And also come join us on Facebook.
Of course, all these will be linked in the description below, as well as all the sources we used in this video. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for watching. And I suppose we will bid you have a wonderful day.
Goodbye. And cut.